Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived an elderly lady. She was frail and silver-haired, with a face etched with wrinkles, but her eyes sparkled with kindness. Everyone in the village adored her, for she always wore a smile, even when life was difficult. She lived alone in a modest house by the great banyan tree. Her husband had passed many years ago, and she had no children to care for her, yet she never uttered a word of complaint. Every morning, she would sit beneath the vast banyan tree, a smile on her face, greeting everyone who passed by. The villagers loved speaking with her because her words were always gentle, like a warm blanket on a cold night. In a village where life was not always easy, her presence brought comfort and hope. The villagers worked tirelessly to make a living. Some worked the land as farmers, some were carpenters crafting furniture, and others ran small stalls in the market, selling fruits, vegetables, and clothes. But hardship was always near. Sometimes the rains wouldn't come, and the crops would wither. Other times, illness would strike, leaving people unable to work. Worry and sadness weighed heavily on many, yet the old lady's smile remained unshaken. One day, a young woman named Priya came to visit. Her face was streaked with tears, and her voice trembled as she spoke. "I don't know what to do, Grandma," she said. "My husband has gone to the city to find work, but he hasn't sent any money. My children are hungry, and I'm afraid. What if something bad has happened to him?" The old lady looked at Priya with soft, gentle eyes, her smile never fading. "Sit down, my child," she said, patting the ground beside her. "Tell me, what do you think will happen?" Priya wiped her tears with the edge of her sari and replied, "I don't know, Grandma. It feels like everything is falling apart. What if my husband can't find work? What if he forgets about us? What if we run out of food?" The old lady listened patiently, then shook her head slowly. "Priya, when we fill our minds with fear and bad thoughts, our hearts grow heavy, and everything seems harder. But when we think of the good things, our hearts feel lighter, and sometimes, good things begin to happen." Priya looked at her, doubt in her eyes. "But how can I think good thoughts when everything around me feels so bad?" The old lady smiled again. "Let me tell you a story," she said. "Once, there was a poor man with nothing, no food, no money, no family. One day, he sat beside a river, crying bitterly. An old woman passing by saw him and stopped. She asked, 'Why are you crying, my son?' The man replied, 'I have nothing. How can I ever be happy?' The old woman smiled and said, 'You have the river that flows endlessly, the trees that give shade and fruit, and the sun that warms you every day. Look around, and you will see beauty and life in everything. If you only focus on what you lack, you will always be sad. But if you open your eyes to what you have, you will find peace.'" The man listened carefully. He stopped crying and began to notice the river, the trees, and the bright sun. Slowly, he started to feel better. From that day, he worked hard, and his life began to change. The old lady looked at Priya and said, "You see, my dear, the man's life didn't change because of magic. It changed because he changed the way he thought. When we think positively, we find the strength to face our problems. But when we dwell only on what's wrong, we feel weak and hopeless." Priya, still listening intently, asked, "Will my thinking really make a difference?" The old lady nodded, her voice soft yet firm. "Yes, my child. If you wake up every morning and say to yourself, 'Today will be a good day,' you will find the strength to care for your children and face whatever challenges come your way. But if you keep focusing on what might go wrong, you will only feel sadness and helplessness." Priya wiped away the last of her tears. Priya nodded slowly. "I understand, Grandma. I will try to think good thoughts from now on." The old lady smiled warmly. "That is the first step, my dear." From that day, Priya followed the old lady's advice. Every morning, she told herself, "Today will be a good day." She worked tirelessly, cared for her children, and waited with hope in her heart for her husband's return. A few weeks later, she received a letter from him. He had found work in the city and was sending money back home. Priya's eyes filled with tears of joy. She ran to the old lady's house, eager to share the wonderful news. The old lady smiled, her eyes shining with quiet wisdom. "You see, my dear, when we think positively, we invite good things into our lives. Problems will always come, but if we face them with a hopeful heart, we can overcome them." Soon, the old lady's wisdom spread throughout the village. More and more people came to seek her guidance, sharing their troubles and concerns. And every time, she offered the same advice: think good thoughts, and good things will follow. The villagers began to witness the power of her words. Slowly, their lives brightened, and hope filled their hearts. They loved and respected her even more for the light she brought into their world. Our thoughts hold immense power over our lives. When we focus on the good, we find strength, hope, and solutions to our problems. Life is never without its challenges, but with a positive attitude, we can face them and invite happiness into our hearts. Always remember, a hopeful heart is a strong heart. This lesson applies to everyone, no matter how dark the situation may seem. A hopeful and grateful heart can create light. By choosing to think good thoughts and embracing hope, we open ourselves to new possibilities, find peace within, and inspire others to do the same.